Welcome to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. My name is Lauren Wells, here with my co-host, Chris Seveney. We're committed to providing you with the knowledge required to build wealth through real estate investing. Tired of consuming content about real estate? Stuck in analysis paralysis? Ready to do your first deal? As a member of our community, you will learn how to go from consuming content to taking that first step into the world of real estate investing. Our show is not about getting rich quick, but about providing you with the knowledge you need to take action. Join us as we speak with experienced investors who share action tips on how to escape the corporate world, start a thriving side hustle in the world of real estate, and go beyond your W-2 or 401k.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. I am your host, Chris Seveney. Today, excited to talk to you about 5 things you need to know about note investing for passive income. So today we will talk a little bit about what note investing is, how notes can truly provide passive income to investors. We'll differentiate the opportunities in note investing from performing, non-performing. We'll talk about risk and due diligence, and we'll talk about how it is more affordable than you think to get into note investing. So sit down, chill out, and let's spend the next 20 minutes together talking about how note investing can be for you in passive investing. So first, let's start with what is note investing? And boil it down very simply. It means that buying the loan or being the lender on a property instead of owning the property itself. And I believe that is an avenue that people struggle with in understanding, like, you don't own the property. You don't have an equity stake in the property. You're just a lender. And think about if you've ever owned a home, let's just use Bank of America as an example. If your loan's through Bank of America, they don't deal with, if you rent it, they don't deal with roof repairs, broken windows, as we like to say, no tenants, toilets, or termites. You are just the lender. And if you've ever listened to me in the past, one thing you'll know I also harp on a lot is drive through any major city who typically owns or has a name on that biggest building, typically the bank, because I believe it was Rockefeller who said, you want to own nothing, control everything. So how does it work? When you step in as a lender, you get a servicing company, and I'm going to use a lot of references to owning property because that's what people can relate to. A servicing company, which is the equivalent of the property manager, to deal with the borrower, to collect the payments, to do the tax forms. All of that is done by the servicer for between $25 and $50 a month. So very affordable within the loan industry to have somebody else handle that. The next step is, how does it truly provide passive income? As I mentioned, those loan servicers, they handle that heavy lifting. And when you think about owning a mortgage, how often do you pay a mortgage? Similar to you pay rent, typically once a month. The difference, and again, as I mentioned, I'm going to keep going back and forth, is when you own a property during a month's time, outlets could break, garbage disposal gets clogged, toilet gets clogged, toilet leaks, shower heads leaky, AC or heating, air conditioning not working. You name it, it can go wrong on your home. And typically it happens between the hours of Saturday and Sunday, between midnight and midnight. I don't know why. It just seems to happen at the least or most inconvenient time. On a note, you don't deal with that. The servicer will let you know, yes, payment was made, payment wasn't made. They pick up the phone, they call, and continue to see what's going on. They send the statements, they keep you compliant. They handle the majority of it, which then allows you, on the performing side of things, a performing loan is when the borrower is making their consistent payments, provide some predictable income. And as I mentioned, I'm going to continue to harp upon this, is you're not dealing with vacancies, maintenance calls, none of that. So a lot of benefits for being more passive and owning a note than it is traditional real estate. So let me dive a little bit deeper into note investing, because hopefully I piqued your interest and throw out some terms that people hear a lot, and I'll provide some additional definition too. So you may hear performing or non-performing loans. Performing, just what you'd think it is. Borrowers making reliable payments, paying on time, not pretty much any heavy lifting. They keep insurance and pay their taxes, as part of the escrow. No issues on performing loans. And typically, again, provides consistent returns. Typically, those returns will be lower compared to a non-performing loan, which has higher upside because you're buying those loans at a bigger discount, a lot more work. You can now rely on a servicer to get the attorney and everything involved, but I'd recommend anybody who gets involved in this really become a master of the trade, build those relationships, and handle it yourself. This would be the best reference for me, would be buying a rental that needs to be fixed up. And you're going to basically manage the construction and renovation of the property. A lot of upside on it, a lot of risk, but you get the reward. Now, when we talk non-performing loans, let me just define what I mean by that. And those are loans typically 90 to 120 days or more behind. So 3 to 4 months behind. Not a week, not missing a payment, or making it before late fees kick in. It's loans that are seriously delinquent. Now, I will tell you that we buy loans typically that are 2 to 4 years behind. So loans going from 90, 120, 6 months, that's not uncommon. So I've gone and defined performing and non-performing. Let's talk a minute about first position versus second position. And for those that own a home, first position is typically your primary mortgage. Second position might be a line of credit, a HELOC. Now, I view this as being in line. So I'll share a story. When younger in college, we used to get in line to get tickets to concerts. And, back in the day, go see Pearl Jam, I'll age myself, and you'd be waiting in line to get tickets. But as you know, they sell out pretty quickly. First position means you're first in line. Second position means you're behind somebody. And in notes, you want to be in first position. You want to be able to make sure you get that ticket. Seconds carry more risk than first, and I'll explain why. Say you have a property that is worth $300,000, and there's a $200,000 first position on it. But you as a first position lien holder are like, hey, look, this person sells this property or they default. It goes to auction. It's worth around $300,000. I'm only owed $200,000. I'm getting paid. I'm cool. You're in a second position. Borrower defaults. And let's say you have a $100,000 second position. They owe the first $200,000. They're like, okay, cool. Getting paid all of a sudden, but then realize, oh, maybe I'm not, because is it really worth $300,000? Plus, they're not paying that $100,000 loan. What happens to that? Accrued interest, late fees, legal fees. At a $200,000 loan, all of a sudden turns into $220,000 really quick. And then they don't pay taxes, not paying insurance. And then you find out that it's only worth $280,000. Okay, the first position's like, I'm cool. I'm owed $220,000, it's worth $280,000. You're in second position, now what happens? Your $100,000 loan, if $220,000 is going to the other person and sells for $280,000, you're only getting $60,000. So much bigger risk. If they were to file bankruptcy, sometimes bankruptcy gets completely wiped out. Not going to go into too much detail on it here, but just understand lien position is extremely important. And for people getting started, I know a lot of people like that second position because it's a lower barrier to entry. I'm a first position guy. That's just who I am. I've done some seconds. I'm a first position guy. But one thing I just want to mention about the different types of loans is typically most people view note investing as an income play, meaning you're collecting those monthly payments. It's not growth like owning property where you have equity. Non-performing can give you that growth side because you're buying it at a discount to give you that equity. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Creating Wealth Simplified. We wanted to take a moment and tell you more about our passive income fund at Seveney, which is open to both accredited and non-accredited investors. Our latest offering targets an 8% annual return distributed monthly with the ability to potentially achieve a greater return through our bonus share program. If you'd like more information, reach out to us at invest@seveneyinvestments.com to learn more. Thank you. And we talk about that more in other podcasts, but I just want to mention it on here that traditionally, it is more of an income play. If you do get into non-performing, it can be growth, but it's extremely active in that scenario. It is not passive. You want to be passive, strict income play, monthly payments coming in the door. Let's talk about number 3, risk. Every investment strategy has significant risk. I love when I see posts on social media that give me 20 grand, I'll double your money in 30 days. Yeah, okay. So no risk involved in that. Might as well just go to the local casino, put it on red or black, and roll the dice. Which actually not roll dice, but you know what I mean. So how do you assess risk in note investing when you want to be more passive? Well, think about when you applied, what did the bank look at? They looked at your credit worthiness. Do you pay your bills? What's your credit score? They want equity. They want you to have some skin in the game, as they call it. They want that loan balance to be less than the property value because it gives you, there's something that you could lose because you could lose that equity. So those are major risk factors as part of note investing and things that you have to assess. Now, what's the biggest risk? The 2 things I always harp on is the unknown and time. First, what do you mean by that? The unknown is one of the downsides of being a lender is know what the inside of most of these properties look like. As a lender, if you own a house, you can't come knocking on the door and say, let me see the inside of your house. There's a potential risk on the actual value of the property. Because you might think it's worth $400, but the property is destroyed or they ripped out bathrooms or kitchens and now it's only worth $250. That happens. Better have a diverse portfolio. The other is time. And what do you mean, Chris, when you say time? Time is money. And if the loan's not paying, you're missing out on payments every month. And foreclosure takes time if you have to go down that path. Even if the property has equity and it's sold in auction. I'm recording this in mid-January of 2025. I've had 2 properties that sold at foreclosure auction, both to third parties, by the way. So it's not like we took them back. Somebody bought it, gave the money to, call it the court, the sheriffs, and to take possession of the property. That was in July. 6 months later, courts are still sitting on that money and haven't released it, which I can only imagine how many millions of dollars they just sit on. Yes, that is something that frustrates me, that people talk about attorneys or cities or jurisdictions or permit offices. Wait till you got to deal with the court system. It's mind-blowing. And I'm not even going to get into too much detail because I don't want to get caught up in the court system. But I'll just, again, reiterate, it's been 6+ months, 6 figures of money just sitting in someone else's bank account because paperwork hasn't gotten processed. Now, how do you reduce this risk? That is a great question. The time risk is really having focused on good attorneys who know what they're doing and respond quickly. There's certain things you cannot control. I can't control government. I can't control the courts. Your servicers and your attorneys and managing them is the best way to reduce risk. Talk about number 4, which is getting into note investing. And I've talked about this in the past and I continue to talk about it. You can get in note investing with $2,000, whether you're doing private lending short-term for somebody, our fund, you can start with $5,000 and you don't, it could still be on $100,000. If you're going to do it yourself, could still be on $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 property, or it's a $20,000 or $30,000 loan. That's why people like seconds, because seconds, somebody might have a $20,000 loan on their property, can pick up that note for $15,000, maybe $16,000. It's more affordable than actually buying property. Now, just remember, when you start small, the returns are not going to be great. What I mean by that? If you're making 10% on $5,000, that's $500 a year. Still good, but people are like, oh, I'm only making $500. What do you expect? I see people, for example, saw a post the other day. Somebody's making $300,000 a year in their W-2 job and wanted to quit their job and sell a property that had $500,000 in equity. And they wanted to know if that $500,000 in equity, they could invest it to replenish their $300,000 income. So essentially, they were looking for a very large return. If you wanted $300,000 on a $500,000 investment, what's that, 60% return? I don't know many people are going to get you a 60% return, especially at a low risk. I have seen funds out there that are offering 40% that I'm reading court cases on them now, and they even have accounting software. They just did everything by Excel. But it's math, people. And just understand you're not going to get rich with a little bit of money in note investing. You're not going to get rich off of anything. And I know people, you can read online about somebody hitting it or doing this or buying some stock or some meme coin or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it happens. But does it happen to everybody or most people? Nope. So understand that it takes time to scale. But if you become good at note investing, you get better at it, and you understand it, then you can leverage that experience, invest in multiple notes, spread the risk, and eventually start talking to people about maybe even having them fund some deals. So I'll mention it's more affordable than you think, but just be realistic on the returns. So let me jump into the last one that I want to talk about today that I think goes often overlooked as a huge advantage to note investing compared to traditional real estate. And I've mentioned this in the past, and I'll mention it again. Typically in note investing, you don't have any leverage, meaning you don't have a loan against, you are the bank, so you don't have a loan for that loan. And that's important to understand because if you go buy a rental property for $200,000 and you put $40,000 down and you're financed $160,000, property goes down to $160,000 and you have no cash, you can't sell it, or you're gonna have to short sell it. If the tenants aren't going well or monies aren't coming in the door, whatever happens is that can cause some illiquidity. You can sell it, but you're gonna potentially you might not be able to because the bank won't let you. In notes, because it's like a cash purchase, you can liquidate it any time. Now, you could take a loss, but it's better to sometimes take a loss and a loss early than a loss late and lose more. But you don't have to always take the loss. You can, besides sell the note, you can modify the terms with the borrower. If the borrower is a spotty payer, modify it to get them on a new payment plan that can still be a win-win for you. That's another option. If they stop paying, you're the lender, you can foreclose on them. It's typically the last resort. Then take the property back, and then once you have the property back, if it didn't sell at auction, then you could sell it, you could rent it, you could sell or finance it. There's multiple exit strategies because you're in control. You're not relying on another bank for their money. You bought it with your own cash, so it's like a cash purchase. It gives you that flexibility to control everything. And again, I've got plenty of webinars and seminars that we talk about all the exit strategies and everything that can be done. But I just wanted to touch base on it here that without that leverage is a myriad of exit strategies that you can go down. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of how notes can be truly passive. And we just want to go back and mention again, rely on your loan servicers, understand the different types of notes. And I would recommend you go first position, performing, stay as passive as you need. Non-performing is not. If you couldn't do first, I go second before I go non-performing. Understand that the risk is manageable with the due diligence. Again, you want to understand the story, the borrower, the credit worthiness. We call it the 3 Ps, the person, the predicament, and the property. Talk a lot about that, how to reduce risk. Again, it's great that note investing is more affordable than you think to get in. And the most passive way, I'll just mention too, is invest in a fund. We run a fund that people can invest $5,000 and they get weekly updates from us on deals of the week and quarterly reports and provide all that information from them, but they don't have to lift a finger. They don't have to call the servicer. They don't have to figure out what to do when it goes into default. That's what we do. And to be frank, the returns are pretty much the same. So it's one of those things where do you want to do the work to make a certain amount of money or pay somebody to do the work and pretty much probably end up making the same amount of money? So something to consider. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, leave us a review on your favorite listening station. You want more information about us, go to 7einvestments.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. thank you for joining Lauren and I on this episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. Each week, we bring you expert education, experience, and information in a digestible format to help you identify investment opportunities so you can build wealth through real estate and take action toward your financial goals. Enjoy the show, share with a friend, or subscribe to the show and leave us a review.